Hey Ben, welcome back to the Rohit Gautam Show.
Hey, it's great to be back.
Great, yeah. I know I rebranded a little bit. Earlier it was Curiosities Chronicles, but now Rohit Gautam Show. But the essence remains the same. How are you doing?
Good.
Okay,
Really good, actually. In fact, never been better. I mean, it's a time in my life where I can say I'm really coming out the other side, let's say. So I'm glad to be
good
on a
to hear.
podcast.
Good to hear.
Yeah.
Good to hear. Yeah, obviously we got together to talk about your new hot book. Tell us what that book is about first.
Well, I'm going to give you some context. And
Mm,
what happened was I got out of school and they said, go sit in the corner, management consulting, because I was a Stanford engineer. So the partner said, hey, you must know spreadsheets. So,
mm,
go sit in that corner and work on spreadsheets and welcome to the team. So I did that and I started working on spreadsheets and I got pretty good at it actually, to the point where let's just fast forward like 7 years later, that's all I was doing, spreadsheets. I
mm,
was the spreadsheet guy.
yeah.
And what ended up happening, this whole life story thing will go very quick, but you gotta follow this because it's really
Mm,
sort of tragic. My arms went out. Like literally, my body was telling me you cannot sit in front of a computer and just crank out spreadsheets for 12 hours, 15 hours a day. It's not going to work. So I actually hired a guy. This is so embarrassing. I hired a guy, like a college student, to be like my typer, and I would stand behind him and say like, in this cell, put VLOOKUP, whatever, or sum if, or whatever. I was doing some pretty good calculations and I'd pay him a cheap rate. But I honestly, I realized, wait, I don't even want to do this. Like, what? It's so frustrating because I'm telling this guy to do this thing in spreadsheets. Like, I don't even want to build spreadsheets anyway. So I went to graduate school in psychology, but then I very quickly realized, well, that doesn't make any money, and we were having kids, so I dropped out of graduate school in psychology and got a job eventually with a company called Alight Planning, where we actually, this is the funny thing, our first white paper was Escape Excel Hell. we were
right.
building budgeting and planning software to get people out of Excel. At the time, it was really cool. But anyway, then I got a lot of other experiences, so things were going really well. And that was really the first time I was feeling, okay, work doesn't suck, right? It wasn't good, but it doesn't suck. Then I had a really interesting encounter because I lost my job at my startup that I was a co-founder of. I don't know if that ever happens to you, but it took me 7 years to realize, I guess this company really is underwater. So reality hit. I had no money. This is like a theme. And I've had a buddy who said, Ben, come out here. I'll give you a 4-week project. It's KPIs. And actually, this is how I got into OKRs. So
Okay.
I didn't know anything about KPIs. I realized this while I was on the plane, okay, to do this KPI project. I thought I'd read the books. Then I looked at their strategy and I said, I don't really know KPIs. I'm just going to do OKRs and see what happens. So I go into this guy's, the CEO's, office, and I say, and he's thinking I'm going to show him KPIs. And I say, well, I looked at your strategy. We could do KPIs, but I came up with something that I think you'll like. It's called OKRs. At this time, nobody even knows what OKRs even are. So I go in there and he's looking at it, and he's with the CFO too. So the CEO and the CFO, and they're looking at it. And I make my presentation to say, okay, that's great. Can you step outside for a minute? So I step outside. At this point, I think I'm getting like laid off. I mean, I need this job. And a couple of minutes later, they say, come back in, and they say, you know what? This is good. We want to do exactly this with not only for our team, but for all the departments, all 40 departments. And my 4-week project turned into a 4-month project. And it was the first time where I felt like, you know what? Work is actually good. Like I actually liked it. And it was a new concept for me to like work. And I did. I started OKRs.com, and there's a whole story there. I'm not going to go into it, but that for 12 years I did this, and it was great. Something
Mm,
happened with OKRs over the last couple of years, and this is getting a little bit personal, but it's good for people to know that the OKRs market kind of tanked.
mm,
What do I mean by that? I used to be getting 10, 15, new leads every week, and in the heyday, and then it became 10, 15 leads every month, and like the last 6 months, it became 1 or 2 leads every month. I mean, I'll be honest here. This is like brutally honest podcast. If you're listening, I mean, I'm one of the top OKRs coaches in the world, and I'm not getting that much business. So
mm,
I realized, something's wrong. So this is actually going to transition into my book. What happened was my daughter asked me, if you got up in the morning, would you want to do your work? Would you do it even if you weren't getting paid? And I said, no way. Are you kidding me? No way. And she said, well, what would you do? And
mm.
I said, I don't know. And she said, Dad, you're 53. I mean, it hit me like I'm not like a kid anymore. I can't just be prototyping my life and exploring. It's like I don't have the answer to that question. So I'll pause here. Rohit, do you have the answer to that question?
No, I don't.
Yeah.
I literally don't.
No, I mean, most of us don't. Honestly, most
Yeah.
of us don't. And
Yeah.
if it wasn't for my 17-year-old daughter, right? I mean, I would just be coasting along doing whatever. But let me tell you something. I'm going to read. This is the first time I'm ever reading this book, a preview of my new book in public. I am so excited about this new book. It's called, now, don't laugh at the title. It's called Assertified. Assert your true self into the world. Okay. Why
Nice.
do I call it that? Because it's a big deal. And this is what happened to me. Like, this is the story. I'm not going to read you the whole introduction.
Yeah, I
but
was
wanna
about to
give you a
ask
piece of
you.
this.
Yeah, what does it mean? Yeah.
You're going to get it when I read you this. Watch
Okay.
this. Introduction. The introduction is, you'll never work a day in your life. And that's coming from my father-in-law, Fari. He was sitting on a park bench in, we were having lunch together on a bench in Burlington, Vermont on Church Street. It was a sunny day. He was smiling when he said, if you love your work, you never work a day in your life. And I wanted to punch him because I was working 80 hours a week with spreadsheets. My life was terrible. Now, I had gotten engaged. I thought, you don't love your work. You love your family. You love your wife. If you say you love your work, that's just some excuse for trying to have some psychological problem, like trying to justify working all those hours. But when he said it, he smiled. He didn't smile. He smiled in a way that was glowing. It was as if he really did mean what he was saying. And that's, I think, what bothered me. So this book is going to be partially dedicated to him because now I'm seeing that. I'm experiencing that. Now, he was the head of psychiatry at a major medical school, and he would have these meetings with his friends on Saturday. And his work did not seem like work. He was a professor. He loved his job. He really did. I don't think he always did. I think you have to get there. But I think at some point in midlife, you either get there or you don't. And I just got there. And this is kind of the story of how that happened. So here we go. I almost lost 5 years of work. I created the OKRs Coach Network in 2021. And by the way, Rohit, you were in it.
Yeah, I was in it. Definitely.
That's how we met. I built it as a community of practice for readers of my OKRs book for coaches. The network connected me to coaches from a dozen countries. And by late 2025, though, the metrics were clear. Things were dropping, right? Participation at my monthly Zoom discussions was down 80%. In other words, instead of 5 to 10, we had 1 or 2. New member applications were dropping fast. People like Rohit were leaving. The platform fees just didn't even justify, holding this thing together. So I had been thinking about deactivating the network for 6 months. I finally logged into the mighty network. The platform warned me. Once all active subscriptions expire, this group will be deleted permanently. Enter deactivate to confirm. And I typed deactivate. I got to tell you, something didn't feel quite right, but I did it anyway, and I did get some closure, and I just went out for a walk. But here's the thing. Several months later, I read my own identity blueprint draft report. The identity blueprint is a tool I built. It's an AI-generated career direction system that takes your story, right? You don't intake something. You take your story, and you put that as the input, and it produces a structured map of your identity capital, your non-negotiable values, and the directions that most align with both. I had run this thing on 50 clients, and it was going really well. And like a lot of them were just shocked by what they saw, and they were just totally, this is amazing, and it was great. But when I did my own, the first page that mattered was titled, What You Need. And here's where I think we're going to insert the screenshot from my actual blueprint report here, okay, Rohit?
Yeah, we will put it.
And anyway, so it was 5 non-negotiables, and the first one stopped me. It said the blueprint had named directly what happened, back to my 80 hours a week doing management consulting and spreadsheets, and it said, Ben, the cost of ignoring the signal had already been paid once, okay? This is a non-negotiable. I'm not going to take on any job where I'm sitting in front of spreadsheets for 80 hours a week. Now, I kind of have to admit, I did know that. But I said, how does it know that so quickly? It just figured all this out. And I've worked in management consulting. I've written 2 books on OKRs and strategic execution. So I assumed I knew my own values. But when I saw them rendered so elegantly, and hopefully you'll see that in this screenshot of my blueprint, the reasoning traced back to a story I had told this blueprint system that I had created, this strange AI thing that I had created with this prompt, it left me awestruck. I saw each of the 5 non-negotiables. I saw them interlocking. The combination produced a coherent profile I had never articulated. And then came the page titled Not on the Menu. And we're going to look at this page. This is the one that actually changed my life. The subtitle read, A Direction You Did Not Walk In With. The recommendation was a licensing play. The blueprint had read my coach network as my best asset. And it said OKRs.com is fading. True. It named a direction I had not considered. License the identity blueprint to my certified OKR coaches who could run it with mid-career clients, not as a side product, but as a distribution channel for the next chapter in my work. Then I saw the reasoning. Your 12-country coach network is the single most undervalued asset you hold.
Ooh.
I remember this moment like it's just happening now, a chord shock. It just like something struck into my nervous system. It was brief, it was intense, and I started moving before my analytical mind could even catch up. I stopped reading my report. I like threw it aside, and I quickly opened a customer support chat with the Mighty Networks to reverse this deactivation request.
Yeah.
Yes, and I was able to do it. I almost lost my network, and now that's the engine for my next chapter. So that's the opening of the introduction from this book. And, look, I wasn't planning to write this book. I was just playing around with AI. I've been doing this for about a year, trying to figure out how to optimize things. And I started iterating on it. It's amazing how quickly, if you have a really good idea for a product or some kind of invention, you can start to do it very quickly with AI. And I think I might have cracked something open here. And this is the first podcast where I'm kind of announcing this. This is why, Rohit, I wanted to actually read you the opening of that introduction. Never before shared story. And so you can see why I got just so jazzed up. Now I'm gonna just turn it over. You might have some questions. I mean, of course, I want to tell you about all the other stories of other people. You can go to my website, benlamorte.com. At the bottom of that page, you can see some testimonials, and you'll see what I mean. I'm still in the early stages of this, Rohit, but
yes. So when are you planning to finish this book? Yeah.
Yeah, great point. It's shockingly fast. I would say it's going to come out this year. I'm going to self-publish it because with the sense of urgency that I have for this book, if I try to go through a traditional publisher, no offense to Wiley, who I've published 2 books with, but even if I like get we go through the process, it's going to be a year. And I hate to say this, at a minimum, a year from like the day we have the contract. Like that's the rush order. It could be 18 months. And that could even put me into 2028. And by then, I'm not paranoid, but by then I think other people will have moved in and already figured this out. So I kind of have a window to do this. So I got to get going on this book. So yeah, 2026.
2026. So, I've been on the website now. So you have this blueprint, which obviously I tried as well. Unfortunately, I didn't have much time, so I just entered it. So now I'm realizing, now I'm listening to you as well, your story, and I think I should give a little bit more time to this blueprint. When I enter my stuff, you have to do a little bit of thinking. So what's the actual idea behind this blueprint?
Well, I'm telling you something now. It goes back to when I was at Stanford. I was studying decision analysis, and my professor was Professor Ron Howard. He was a legend. He died in 2024. He invented the field of decision analysis, and I was lucky enough to take his class. And when I was taking his class, his decision stool had 3 legs, okay? Information, right? This is like uncertainties and what do you know about the situation. Values, right? And of course, in business, many times it's just money, but it's like, what do you value as an organization? Risks and things like that. And then the other one was alternatives, right? What are the actions you can take? What is the decision you can make? And an alternative has to be something you can actually do. It can't be like, I hope that would happen. That's not an alternative. It has to be a thing you can take, right? So I always felt like, I wonder if you could use this decision stool that Professor Howard invented into your life instead of in businesses. I always had that in the back of my mind. And finally, it just clicked. It was like, wait, career decisions, or not even career decisions, but sort of like midlife decisions, where should I live? Or should I should I go back to school and study philosophy or whatever? I mean, in midlife, like all these really interesting things happen. And so you're going to be making some important decisions that are really going to be, like I said, asserting your true self into the world. I mean, now you know yourself. And so I built this decision stool where the information now is about you. Like, what are your strengths? What are your values? What is your, identity capital? What is your unfair advantage, right? What are your values? What are the things that are important to you? What are your non-negotiables? What puts you into a state of flow? That actually goes back into information about you. I was debating, is that values or what? But that actually is part of your information leg is a big deal. And then, of course, the alternatives. And the alternatives can fall into 3 flavors. It can be, hey, I have a job and I want to make an impact at work, but I want to bring my true self to work. I don't want to put on a mask. So I'm going to take my strengths and my values and I'm going to build my my impact OKR. Yep, I just announced it. First time anybody's ever heard it. The impact OKR is where it's just funny because you probably know this, Rohit, but I've always been against individual OKRs.
Yes.
Because
We
OKRs
talked about
cascade
that.
from the
Yeah.
top.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And
Right.
if you try to roll out OKRs to the whole organization and every individual has an OKR, it's
Yes.
just going to be a complete disaster.
Disaster. Yeah.
And so just like a couple months ago, I figured out there's a whole new way to do an individual OKR that actually allows that individual. You wouldn't necessarily do it with every individual in the company, but it allows an individual to actually get intrinsic motivation. And you have to connect their impact OKR into the OKRs of the company or whatever. I don't want to go off that topic, but the impact OKR is how do I assert my true self into an organization? So it could be a job, it could be church, it could be a school, any organization. Okay. Then I get excited. That's probably why I'm scratching my nose. So then there's the alternative OKR. And the alternative OKR is like somebody just has a bad job. They want to get out of it. They need to create alternatives. Or maybe somebody that doesn't even have a job. Or maybe you're somebody that has a job, but there's something you can be doing in addition to that. Okay, maybe it's in the same company or maybe it's a side project that's going to be like creating an alternative that goes beyond what you're already doing. Okay, that's the create alternative OKR. And then the final one is the personal OKR. And this is something like, I'm going to move and take care of my aging parent. If you're in midlife, you might relate to that. Or it might be, I'm going to finally go back and do that MBA that I always thought I would do. So it's not about, making an impact in a company. And it's not really about, creating a new alternative. It's about going and doing something that you need to do. Maybe it could be going to the gym, right? So yeah, you're really opening up. A personal OKR can be just about anything. It's personal growth OKR. Sorry, I'm calling it a personal growth OKR. I just realized that a few weeks ago, so I got to give you that update.
Yeah. So you're still keeping, like what I heard is you're still keeping OKRs as a core belief in that, right? When you have the blueprint and the new book as well, you're coming off as certified. So is it, why not its purpose, or what's the idea behind the name?
Okay.
Why not purpose, clarity, because OKRs give you like direction, clarity.
Oh,
why is certified? Yeah.
I mean, I'm really glad you asked that. I'm going to talk a little bit about something that gets me a little bit emotional because people have been talking about prototyping. And I read a couple books on this. Of course, there's Design Your Life or whatever it's called. And then there's another book called Working Identity by Ibarra. And those were, I think, Working Identity was written in 2003. And what she's saying is everybody's, doing this traditional approach of like looking inward and then trying to find a job. And yeah, back then, I think Ibarra was right. That was 2003. We used to look inward and then try to find a job. And I don't think it worked very well because at the time we were doing these personality tests and these ridiculous things, the Myers-Briggs or whatever.
Exactly. Whatever that.
It was. I actually agree with. I agree with Ibarra. And in 2003, I think we probably needed to move toward prototyping. And then Design Your Life came out. I mean, you probably heard of this. It's like a big time book, and it's like everybody's talking about prototyping their life. I mean, like as if it's a product. And look, I get it when you're in your 20s and you don't know what you're doing. You need to prototype, right? You prototype things to learn more about yourself or just do something, take action. I mean, the only way you learn is you iterate. So to some extent, I actually think prototyping makes sense. But I had this huge insight. This is actually the most important insight I'm going to share. And what it is like, I realized when I looked back at my life, I was kind of prototyping a lot. And I realized some people prototype their whole life and they never assert. So I made a distinction between prototyping and asserting. And I think as a society, we've gone too far toward looking outward to test out what happens in order to learn about ourselves. And I think when you're in midlife, it's time to look inward. So I think I see both perspectives, but I think we've gone too far into prototyping. And so I'm not trying to say prototyping is bad, but let me read you something that I think is a very elegant key piece from this book. Okay, here we go. I'm going to start with, I'm going to start right here. If you're in your mid-career, acting in a wrong direction can carry real cost. Income, relationships, credibility, health, family, it's all on the line. If you're in your mid-career, you cannot afford to iterate on your direction the way you can when you're 22. So I'll pause there and just say, I think prototyping makes a lot of sense when you're 22. Here's the fine print.
Yeah.
Yesterday, I met a guy who's 22, actually 22, and he did the blueprint. And this guy has completely transformed. It transformed his life. He's an engineer, and he's very creative. He has a lot of energy. And he did the blueprint twice. The first time he did it, he kind of messed it up. He didn't take it seriously, probably like you, Rohit.
Same me.
But the
Yeah,
second
same as
time
me.
he did it,
Yeah.
the second time he did it. So if you're going to do this, if you're listening to this podcast and you do it, listen very carefully. Don't be this guy the first time, and don't be Rohit the first time. He
Don't be
voice
me.
chatted.
Yeah.
He voice chatted, and he was
Okay.
really at a point where he was like, he really wanted to do more. Look, he was shipping products, he was doing engineering, but he really wanted to do more. And he's always kind of wanted to be a movie star, and he's kind of got charisma and he's funny. So after he went through the whole blueprint thing, fast forward, it came out and said, why don't you become the face of your company? Like, everybody's in their 40s, you're just some 22-year-old guy, everybody else is in their 40s, but like, you're the guy that has the energy. You're the unique, your unfair advantage is that you want to come up and like announce new features and make it interesting. So he's like, all right. He gets this idea and he goes to his boss and says, look, I know it's crazy. If you're an engineer, you're probably not supposed to, do this, but I just have this feeling like I could actually become the face of our company. And like, if you guys hired a production crew, full on cinematography and everything with lighting, and like, I could be on there, I'll wear a nice outfit. You guys covered all the costs and stuff. And I'm going to just do these videos and announce project features and just make it really fun and interactive. And they said, yeah, that sounds like a good idea. So he has like $100,000 budget, to do this project. That's like his salary or something. And he's now going to become the face of his company. And it's because of the blueprint that this happened. So what I mean is, like, in that case, he didn't prototype something. He looked inward and then he asserted his true self into the world, and he saw how the world reacted. And he was 22. That's really unusual. And when I saw that story, this is what I wrote. What AI enables for the first time in history, and by the way, you're going to hear that a lot, right? So far, nothing very new in my statement, is iteration on clarity itself. Clarity can now arrive at a speed and cost that is basically free, risk-free. That's what my blueprint does. You can do in a 20-minute session, and maybe like a follow-up 20-minute session, maybe a call with me for 20 minutes, like literally maybe an hour or two, okay? You're going to have this like shocking clarity. You are not prototyping yourself anymore. You are asserting yourself to see how the world responds. That's the difference. A prototyper acts in order to learn who they are. The action is their instrument. The self is the object under study. The prototyper is saying, I do not yet know enough about myself to decide. Therefore, I will act so I can learn. The doing produces the knowing. An asserter, this is the premise of the book, right? An asserter acts from what they have already decided is true about themselves. The action expresses the self. You become the agent. The asserter is saying, I have done the inner work and I know what I need to do, so I will do it. The knowing produces the doing. What the asserter is testing is not the self. It is testing the world's response to that self.
Yeah.
To me, this is a really big deal. Hopefully you can see, I mean, I'm not reading, I'm trying to sound like I feel like I'm like a, a preacher. I mean,
No,
I've never felt like this,
yeah.
This is a big deal for me.
No, I think this does make sense, because again, like you said, like in early years, and then plus because you can take more risks as well, you're more proactive, you want to be more doing a lot of things, you're just looking outwards everywhere, right? You don't look inwards at that time because you want to do best, you want to do it. But when people like myself, I'm not that old, but even though I've got gray hair, but I'm not that old. But if you see people like this, especially with AI coming in, like every day there are new challenges. Every day there's something new coming up. Every day now. They are very scared of the jobs as well, right? Are they right to be scared, or they should look at, like you said, being more assertive and look inside to say, what they want to do, what they want to get the blueprint of their life.
It's very important what you're saying, because identity capital, which is like the experiences, the skills, the relationships, and all of the things you've developed over your time, so, as you get older, that's built up. And for a lot of us, like take spreadsheets. So if you're really good at spreadsheet modeling, I mean, you can't really put that on your identity capital anymore, because nobody really cares, because
Nobody
AI
cares.
has taken that
Exactly.
away. It crossed it off the list.
Exactly.
So you're going to you can't just rely on yourself to continue going down this path. What I found is that with AI, I think it used to be that having clarity about yourself and being able to like have your unfair advantage and know your strengths and be able to assert that into the world, I think that used to be a good idea, right? I mean, if you could do it, great. What I'm trying to say now is it might be essential. It might be essential that you have this. If you don't have this, you're at risk, I think, with AI. I think if you're actually able to be in touch with you as a human and what it is that you can bring and what it is that you need in order to be successful, what puts you into a flow state, how can you do something that no one else can? And this doesn't have to do with, oh, I can use a spreadsheet or whatever. This has to be deep, right? This has to come from inside of you, not because somebody told you to work on spreadsheets and sit in the corner. If you have that self-knowledge, I think now you can survive in the AI era. And otherwise, I think I don't know. I mean, I'm not going to say you can't. I think probably a lot of people can. And let's face it, there are a lot of people with jobs that are still immune to AI. But to be honest with you, there are a lot of people. What's interesting to me is a lot of the people who are typically, right, immune to all these problems, right? Like look at the pandemic. The pandemic hit us. And for a lot of remote workers, they just worked at home and they did their knowledge work in front of their computers. And they were like, oh, this is great. But if you're somebody working in a meat packing plant, right, you're out of luck. Or, if you're working in a restaurant, you're out of luck. Like, so a lot of the people that had these jobs that are like essential workers, but then again, they're not making much money, they kind of got wiped out. And they were the ones, ironically, that really needed the money. So that's what happened in the pandemic with AI, which is in a sense a pandemic in and of itself, because it's disrupting the economy. All of a sudden, those lawyers, this is the one thing that maybe makes me feel a little bit better about AI, is that a lot of those lawyers are going to start losing their jobs because they have to have billable hours. And I mean, I got friends who they're not going to call their lawyer anymore. They're just going to talk to Claude. And honestly, no offense, lawyers, but for 5 out of 6 potential legal situations, I hate to say it, at this point, Claude is better than you. I'm sorry. Like, I'm just going to come out and say it. It's 4 points. Yeah.
There are some great answers there in Claude. I tried it as well for legal things. Yeah. But yeah, Ben, I was just coming on to that, like when 2008 happened, financial crisis happened in 2008. Yeah. I remember that time because that touched me because then I remember that story. In 2008, a lot of people, my friends, right, they were working like this, right? And financial crisis, they got sacked, they got made redundant, their jobs gone. What they did, they looked inwards. They said, okay, what can I do? A lot of them became photographers, wedding photographers. They started a new business. And then what happened? COVID happened. Then they have to change again after that. Yeah. So again, it's that life, isn't it? It's like you don't need to look outward. You need to look inward. What can you do? How can you adopt in that situation?
I think you nailed it. And I think one point I want to emphasize is that there is no such thing. This is one of the criticisms that Ibarra had in her book. She writes about the myth of the true self. And in some ways I agree with her, and in some ways I don't, because I think what she's trying to say is there actually is no true self. It's some made up hypothetical thing. And so therefore you should just go out and start doing stuff and see how it goes. Maybe you'll make some connections and you'll have this journey. And I think that's interesting, but I actually think that's very pessimistic. I think what the real way to say this is there might be no actual true self, like the single essence of what makes you you. I mean, that's getting kind of spiritual. I mean, maybe there is, but what I would say is that from a career work perspective, like what does it mean to assert your true self? Look, your true self is dynamic.
Yes.
It's changing all the time. I mean, 2008, my true self, you're going to adapt. And so, that's good for me because my business model is I need you to assert your true self into the world. And if you can keep changing your true self, you have to come back and get more blueprints, right?
Exactly. This is where I'm coming here because you react. I mean, not react. You actually respond to what is happening outside. Your true self could be your one thing that you believe in, but even using that, you need to adopt what is happening around you. Otherwise, if you keep doing the same thing again and again, you're going to get the same blueprint and you're going to do the same. And then the world's going to change around you. You're going to stay there wherever you are. You're not going to move.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you the story of how I got into OKRs because really I have this advisor, Jeff Walker. Shout out to Jeff Walker. He was the founder of Oracle Applications. So Larry Ellison brought in Jeff Walker when Oracle was a $40 million a year company and they were a hardware company. In other words, they were going nowhere. No offense, Larry Ellison, but your business was going to go nowhere if you were in hardware. But Larry Ellison, being a smart guy, he brought in Jeff Walker, who was at the time the #1 software guy in the world. He had invented the first interactive general ledger, if you can think about that, like on punch cards, right? This guy's going back. So he came in and he invented Oracle Financials and, he did Oracle software. Next thing you know, Oracle's, instead of a 40 million, 5 years later, they're $1 billion. Yeah. Okay, maybe it was 6 years. The point is it's rapid growth. Anyway, I was lucky enough to have Jeff Walker become my mentor. And he actually did clarity work with me. right after I had done that little OKRs project, the one in Virginia that I mentioned where I was flying to that guy, I did that. I came back and I went back to my, get a job. I got a job at a company or whatever. And then I got on the phone with Jeff and because something felt off about my job. Like I wasn't having that same excitement that I had with the OKRs coaching. And so Jeff talked to me and he said, well, what is the one thing that you do that you love to do that you're really good at that the world needs? And I'm like, well, OKRs coaching. And he said, well, how many hours a week are you doing that? I said, like 3 or 4. And he said, why can't you make that 30 to 40? I said, Jeff, I mean, look, they're not paying me to do that. I'm doing financial models. I'm working with these clients. I mean, there's no way I can do that. And Jeff said, stop doing the other stuff. This was a really important part of my career. He said, stop doing that other stuff. Just do as many OKR coaching sessions as you can, free or paid. It doesn't matter. And very quickly, if you're any good at this and the world needs it, you're going to find out just how big the market is. And so in other words, he was telling me to assert my true self into the world and see how the world responds.
Yes.
Right? Now, in my case, luckily, the world responded very well. And because I was adding value and eventually, but it wasn't easy at first, right? I had to do it free. I had to nobody knew what OKRs was. So I was literally, kind of the annoying guy saying, hey, don't you want to do OKRs? I feel a little bit like that now with the blueprint. There's a little bit of like, I'm doing the blueprint free. However, all you have to do is click on something and it takes you 15 minutes. So it's really, boy, I'll tell you what, this thing adds value. And I'm now asserting my true self into the world with this blueprint thing. And I don't know exactly how it's going to make money, to be honest with you, but I'm not really at that stage. I'm just inviting people to come in and do this and just have this amazing experience. But I will tell you, we'll find out how the world responds to the blueprint. And the only thing is like, I'm really enthusiastic now, but if it's a year later and I'm not making any money from this, you sort of wonder if you assert your true self into the world. So far, when I've done that, I've only done that once, okay, with OKRs.com. So far I've done that once. And I mean, I made pretty good money. I published 2 books. I wasn't even the kind of guy that's a writer. I mean, I was an engineering major. Come on, Ro. I mean, it's like, how do you turn me into a writer? Well, when you assert your true self into the world, like all these amazing things start to happen. It's really amazing. Like if anybody's listening to this and you've done that, let's also talk. Like let's bring them. I'm inviting them to come and talk to me or talk to Rohit. Like it's such an inspirational story and you know it when it happens. Right? Because you're in a state of flow when you're working, you're excited. You can't wait. This is the first time in my life. I get up in the morning. I got up at 5 a.m. this morning. Usually I'd be like, go right back to bed. I was like, I'm going to work. I mean, I'm fired up. I'm excited. Like, this is great. Like, I can't wait to get in front of my computer and start cranking on this stuff. Like, what? I never even knew that was possible. My point is, Fari, my father-in-law, was right. Because now I just can't stop smiling. I just can't. It's like, it's this weird, it's almost spiritual what I'm experiencing here, Rohit.
Yes. Yeah. And this is what you mentioned, right? This is now you're asserting yourself to say this is what it is. It may change in a couple of years or 3 years, 4 years, right? It may change because this is what it is, End of the day, where you are now, right now, not like you were before or where you're going to go next. This is right now. What is the next thing right now, right? So Ben, tell me, was there any point where you thought to almost quit this, right? Would this work? Did you had that in your mind, or do you always had that? Okay, let me try this. How is going to work out?
Well, actually, I started this project out for 20 something. So because I remember when I was graduating from college, and you know my story. I graduated from college, and then I went and got a job in management consulting, and then they told me to go build the spreadsheets, and then it was 10 years later, and then my arms, right? So I told you that story already, but there was nobody there to help me think about my values, what it is I wanted. They were just people telling me what to do. And I just said, okay. And I realized that that's probably happening to a lot of people when they get out of college. They're getting a job, whatever job they can get, that's fine. But if you're doing it for a year and you're getting some clear feeling of like, this isn't really what you want to do, or maybe you're not developing the skills you want, I think maybe you should get out of that. And I read this book, The Defining Decade by Meg Jay, which will be my book recommendation. I'm only making one. Okay, I'm not telling you to read. I mentioned other books, Design Your Life, Working Identity. Yeah. Please don't read those books. Don't read those. No. Read The Defining Decade. And this is true, even it's for your 20s, right? But even if you're not in your 20s, look, you were in your 20s. This is a must-read book. And that got me so excited about working with 20-somethings, which I've always wanted to do. And actually doing decision analysis type principles with these 20-somethings. I started a podcast. It was a very good podcast, by the way. I think I had 12 listeners. And I realized after that there's no way I'm going to like change the world with a podcast. Got pretty clear on that. So I started this identity blueprint report as a tool for 20-somethings. And I taught a class at Dominican University. I co-taught a class called Career Jumpstart. And I tested this blueprint out with these college students. They loved it. It was amazing. So many great things happened. Just leave it at that. But I'll tell you, I quickly realized, wow, this is a way to definitely not make money. Working with these college students, and actually it's a funny story. A lot of the parents I would show it to, they were like, wow, okay, I really want my kid to do this. Like parents saw the value, like, oh my God, I need my kid to do this blueprint right away. And if you're like just about to graduate from college and your parents tell you to go do something that some random guy did something on AI or whatever, you're like, no, I'm not doing that. So even though I had 12 parents get all excited about it, we had one kid actually do it. And actually, technically, it wasn't a parent. That was an uncle who recommended it for his niece. So I guess I should take that back. If you're an uncle and you actually care about your niece or your nephew, they can do their blueprint with me. But I pivoted because I realized I don't think my heart is still in there with the college students graduating, and I still want to try to work on that. But you can't do everything. So I figured out the mid-career. What I noticed was that the blueprint reports were much more beautiful when you had more story to tell, like more data, more like I told you some of my story in this podcast. But like if you talk like that and just tell the story, it becomes rich and it's able to sort of derive a lot of cool things about you. Whereas a college student, maybe they don't have that yet.
Yeah, not have that. But one of my friend Frankie, he's working with Gen Zs at the moment. So he's an agile coach as well, like myself. He's I think he knows about OKRs as well. So he started working with Gen Z. But I'm gonna send him this as well. So Frankie, if you are listening to this, click the link in the description. So try out. It might be more useful for you what you are doing at the moment as well.
Yes. And the reason, okay, let me tell you the other full disclosure. The other reason why I can start to promote this finally, thank you, Nimra, shout out to Nimra. She's in Pakistan. She's working for me for like $30 an hour. I mean, if she was in the US, it would be like $130 an hour. Okay, that would be maybe even more than that, honestly. And so Nimra, if you're watching this, I just want to say thanks. What Nimra is doing, and this just happened, is she was able to get the blueprint report first draft. So if you go to my website and you click it, you're going to, in like 5 minutes, fingers crossed, right? In like 5 minutes, you're going to get your blueprint report and it's going to be free. I mean, I'm doing this just because this is what I want to do. In fact, one of my values is to add tremendous value to people at no cost. And so like actually for me, AI just makes this super easy for me to do because I mean, no offense, it still costs me about 12 to 15 cents right now to run one of these reports. Like I've actually done the analysis. Now, of course, that doesn't count all my fixed costs, for building this stuff and having engineering and product design and all that. But and I put in just millions of hours. I guess I'm exaggerating, but it feels like millions of hours, but it's been fun. But you have this ability to get this draft report for free right away. Now, eventually I'll have the refined report, which is where you answer a refined set of questions. And by the way, these questions that I've been able to like automate, full disclosure, I don't come up with the questions. I sort of came up with the idea for what the questions should look like.
Yes. Yeah.
But when you do your blueprint, it takes my framework of the kind of questions I want to ask, but it composes it based on what you put in. And I'm not kidding when I say this. These are probably going to be the most important questions that you've ever heard anybody ask you in your life, and it's going to be happening from an AI. It is absolutely bizarre how good these questions are. So anyway, you're going to answer these questions and you're going to do it with voice chat. Then I'm going to get your report and you're going to get your report. We're both going to have your refined report. And then we're going to meet over a Zoom call. And what's so funny is what's been happening is by the time I meet you on a Zoom call, it's like I know you more deeply than like most of your friends. Like, somehow we have this connection. So after that first call, we're having this like incredibly deep conversation. We're refining your values. We're talking about what puts you into a flow. I did this with my mom because she plays mahjong. She's 80, so she's not really the target market. But she plays mahjong with her friends. And so that puts her into a state of flow that's connected. It's called productive connected flow. I invented something called the flow matrix, by the way. If you want to talk to me about that, we can, but it's going to be beyond the scope. But what happened was my system got something wrong. It said because she's playing online mahjong by herself, it said, okay, well, that's alone flow, not with other people. So it's alone, but it's also not productive because it's not moving you in a direction you want to go. And typically playing video games like online chess or whatever, you're just kind of wasting your time. You might think, unless you're really becoming a chess champion, it's not really related to anything you're trying to do. It's more of a distraction. That's non-productive flow. But my mom said, no, that's good. It's productive because I have to practice by myself in order to have my connected flow playing mahjong with my friends. And so we've had these little breakthroughs like that, where actually, this distinction becomes okay, what kind of things put you into flow? Is it a good kind of flow? And as you reflect on this, it actually then says it justifies what you're doing. You feel like you have more clarity about it. But then it helps you to think about how can you plan your day, like on a micro basis, right? So that you're going to put yourself into these flow states.
Hmm.
And what I found is that when people do this and they get conscious about it, or they start to think about what kind of careers help them to get into flow more, right? That's going to be part of asserting their true self into the world,
Hmm.
because it's as if, and one of the themes I'm seeing is giving yourself permission to be yourself. There's 3 patterns of the blueprint so far. One of them is you already know what you need to do. You're just not giving yourself permission, whether it's unconscious or there's something that's blocking you. That's actually very common.
It
That was
is.
me, right?
Yeah, it is.
That
It
was
is.
me.
I'm as well sometimes. Yeah, it is.
So when you see the blueprint say, like in my case, it's like, you know what you want to do, Ben, and this is the most undervalued asset. Why don't you use that? And so it starts giving you these ideas, and you're just like, because it takes all your assets and things and figures out how you can leverage what you already have in
Hmm.
order to like assert your true self in the world. And it also says like, these are some of the things that you can maybe give up.
Hmm.
You have to release some of your identity capital and stop doing that.
Yeah.
So anyway, that's what's going on. I'm not
Yeah.
even sure if I answered your question, but
No,
you
no,
got me
yeah.
upset. You obviously have good questions.
So I was thinking about this, when you're talking about AI and how it's actually changing the lives, how changing. But in this work, right, blueprint work, and your book coming out, where does this AI fail, and then where
Oh
does
yeah.
this human actually still beat that machine?
This is such an important question. So my wife at first was just totally against this. She's a purist. And so she's like, you can't do this AI thing. I mean, this is people's lives or values. I mean, it's stupid. You can't do that. And so to some extent, she was right. She wasn't completely right. I was going so far down the AI. Oh, look, okay, I'm an entrepreneur, right? So I thought, hey, wait a minute. I'll just digitize me and people will just, have me coach them and it'll just be all AI. And I realize now that that's wrong. There's a number of reasons why it's wrong. But at the end of the day, let me walk you through what I found out works. So the first report that you're going to do is always AI. Always. It just is,
Hmm.
because it's like, it's not even supposed to be a really good report. It's a draft.
Hmm.
Okay. So it's a get started, type some stuff in. Here's it is. So it gets us started. Even my wife is okay with that. The second report, which is where you refine it, this can be a human or it can be AI. And so what I'm going to do is both. I'm going to have you do a quick refinement with AI, and then I'm going to meet with you and we're going to get a human involved. And so
Okay.
that's where the human gets involved. Now, here, it's a little bit like the baton has been handed over.
Mhm.
Now, we're going to use the human interaction. And what I'm going to do, oh boy, I feel like I'm giving away all my secrets, is I'm going to record that conversation. Anybody can figure this out. This is not rocket science. You're going to record that conversation, and then you're going to put that back into the prompt, if you will, to even create a more refined report. So the AI becomes sort of a tool at this point, but the human is having the conversation.
Mhm.
That's very important. And then ultimately, my big philosophy is there's this thing called assert. So all of those are called your clarity reports, right? Your draft report, your refined report.
Yeah.
We're getting clarity. We're not taking action yet.
We're not taking action yet. Yeah.
Yeah, and then the assert report is once we agree that all 3 legs of your stool are at 100%, right? You have very clear information. You have very clear on your values, all of that, right? In order to get there, we have to pressure test and talk as humans, and we have to agree, because the AI might say, hey, you're at 100%, but if you don't feel like that, you're not, right? Or the AI, this actually happened to me today. The AI said you're 90% there, and my guy was like, that's a bunch of, blank. I'm not even, he was just yelling like a bunch of profanities. I'm at 100%, stop. I was like, okay, fine, you're at 100%, sorry. My AI algorithm is saying you're at 90%. We can check why. And it's like, he's like, that's a bunch of, whatever. So I was like, okay, let's make you at 100%. When you really have it, you know it. When you have the clarity, you get to know it, not the AI. So the AI is kind of useful to getting you kind of part of the way there and so forth, but only you can make the decision. Now I have clarity. And actually what I do as the coach is I say, and let me see if I agree with you. We have to both decide that you have clarity, because only then can we assert. So I'm going to help you assert your true self into the world. And we get to this point where we then develop the OKR. Well, that's what I do. That's my OKR coaching. Now, to be honest with you, my AI prompt based on my instructions does a pretty darn good job of drafting the OKR. Really, it does a very good job. But you don't have a final OKR until you have a human interaction. You really talk about it. Like, what are we really committing to? What's a stretch, right? How many key results do we need?
Yeah.
Does that really mean you've achieved the objective? I want to say, will your wife actually say that you succeeded if this happens? Like that actually happened to me today, because I have the wife situation, and if you have one of those, that's going to be a good question to ask. So we play that out and then we approve it. And at that point on, it's all human. It's only human coaching. But I've actually found out that the real thing here is like the big value that I'm going to offer is if you're a coach, especially if you're a career coach, you're going to need this blueprint. I'm going to be announcing that in the next month or two, that you're going to be able to get it at a very low cost, like maybe $50, $100, $200 a month, something like that, depending on how many blueprints you want. But if you're using this with your clients, it's like your first session becomes like session 4, right? So you've basically gotten so much progress that you're going to be able to get to because coaches, we want to coach people to do stuff. That's the thing. If you want clarity, go to your therapist or whatever, something like that. Like we don't have time for just sort of talking about how do you feel or what are your values. We might do that as a coach for a session. No, we do that for maybe 1 or 2 sessions. But then like we think, hey, there has to be action. Like, we have to move the needle. Like that's how we think as coaches. And I actually found that that's the problem, because if you don't have the clarity, I've actually been coached before when the coach is like, okay, so you're going to do this. And I'm like, well, I guess. I mean, I almost want the coach to feel like I'm making them happy because they're so like focused on getting me to commit to something that I'm like, okay, fine, I'll just do that. I mean, I don't know.
You know what? Okay, we will talk about that as well in another episode. But because I'm a professional coach, this is why I always say, right? So it's not my agenda to push the coachee to say what I want them to do, right? You have to give them time. You have to think, let them think to say what they want to do. But a lot of coaches, I know, they try to push, they try to guide the coachee to say, yeah, this is because they want to look happy. They want to say, yeah, I've created a goal for them. The coachee created a goal for them, right? But I'm loving this, Ben, about this. I will try this with one of my coaches as well, one of my clients as well.
Yeah.
This one.
Yeah, the basic philosophy is clarity before commitment.
Yes.
Right? First get clarity, then get commitment. And so this thing helps you get clarity faster. Yeah. And the thing is, so the people like it, but who really likes it is the coach. So that's where I can get the money, is from the coach. And I can't get a lot of money from coaches because coaches don't want to spend a lot of money. But I get a little bit. And the point is that these coaches that are going to use it are going to get ridiculous amounts of value. I mean, I'm talking actually insane amounts of value from this thing. So, and also like, I would say if you are a coach and you're worried about getting new leads, or you're worried about what is AI going to do for my job, you better start embracing AI right now. And I'm just going to go out and make the claim. There's plenty of AI tools to help you with scheduling or like, processing your meeting notes or something like that. That's all great. I am offering something right now. I can make this claim. I've checked it on, like, I've done a lot of research. As far as I know, I'm the only one doing what I'm doing, and it's just starting. And if you can get in with me as a coach, it's actually going to completely transform your business, and you're going to completely dominate. Like, I'm making this claim because I'm starting to see it happen. I'm starting to see it with some coaches where they're just like, it's in the early stages. So I'm saying, and it's going to get better. So if you want to join me, get excited. I don't have the actual tool for you to plug and play, but even right now, you can just sort of use this thing for free because I have the draft report for free. So you can send some of the coaches I know are sending clients there now and just having fun with it.
I'm gonna send as well. So I wanted to ask you this before we go, Ben. How long are you gonna keep it for free?
Well, the draft report, I think I almost have to make that free, at least, I don't know about forever, but at least until, let's say my book comes out or something like that, because nobody has any understanding of what this is. They don't understand the value of it until they see it. So I have to give the people, I mean, look, coaches will always get the first report free because coaches are like my customers that are going to eventually buy something. What I found is that individuals, like if you're just somebody out there and you're maybe thinking like, yeah, I might want to look for a career coach or something like that. If I put like, oh, it's $200 or $100 or even $50 to get your draft report, they're going to be like, yeah, I'm not going to do that. So I've already figured that out. B2C is over. So I'm going to give people probably a free report, or maybe if it's going to be paid, it might be like $10. I have to come up with a really low number for that draft report. Also, the draft report, let's be clear, it doesn't really cost me anything. So it's almost like, is it even ethical to charge people money for this? I mean, what am I doing? So the draft report, I think I'm making an announcement here, Rohit. I'm going to make it free at least through the end of the year. Now, the refined report, I can't make that free because there's more work going on my side. Yes. And then also I'm going to change my business model a million times, let's be honest. So I probably shouldn't talk about it. But the spirit of the refined report should not be free. Here's the funny thing. If your coach is my partner, you get the refined report free. And you can do as many as you want, because here's what the coaches are telling me. I'm already charging my clients plenty of money. Like, the coaches know. They know. They're like, oh, it's $4,000, for 10 sessions. And they know they're getting away with murder, right? So if they're going to then say, hey, go work with Ben and do the blueprint and pay another $100, you're going to be like, you know what? Screw off. I'm not going to. So, but if the coach is my partner, now they can offer the blueprint report for free by giving you a special code. If you're their client, you say, oh, cool, I can use this cool AI tool and like make the coaching better and I don't pay anything. Oh, that's cool. I'll do that 20 minutes, whatever.
Yeah.
And so you would do that even before your first session with the coach, right? So now the first session with the coach is like, let's go right into what matters, like right out of the gate, right? Yeah,
exactly. So this is again different to all the personality tests, all the rubbish things out there, right? Which actually don't make sense. They actually, I don't even like those, all the assessments, all the Myers-Briggs, all the DISC, all the Hogan assessments. They're all just part of, they don't even think about psychology of people. We are complex people. We are not, and like you said, Ben, like this is probably today, right? 3 weeks, 4 weeks, month, 6 months later, I may have a different blueprint because my direction is different. I'm thinking differently as well. It's never been that.
Yeah, I mean, it's probably not going to change every month, but maybe 6 months.
No, I'm just saying, anything can happen, dynamic. Right, in life. Tomorrow we have a COVID, maybe another pandemic in weeks' time. Then we have to think again what we want to do.
Yeah, I think it's really the most important work you can do is to look inward, and I don't know that we talk about that enough. I think it's really important. So that's and also I would say, like, one other thing about the blueprint, I'm starting to get to know people. Like, I know people in Malaysia now that are that they've referred me to. I got people really all over the world, and I'm talking about there's so much diversity in the people I'm talking to, and some of it's been emotional. I've actually cried on a couple calls. This is different than OKR coaching. Okay. They've cried, I've cried, we've had tears, but I've had people where they're doing remote work for a relatively low price, but they're, when they travel, they get drunk too much and it's unhealthy. And, you start to get into these real issues. And I'm like, oh my God, like you really need to find remote work where it's really remote and it's not, remote, but you're also traveling, because when you're traveling, it's just a bad thing for you or whatever. So I'm, look, I did study psychology for a few years, so I'm not a licensed therapist, but some of this stuff gets deep and I'm okay with that. And so I would just invite you to, don't BS this thing. I mean, if you're having a problem with smoking or whatever it is that, you want to get rid of, or, maybe like when you travel, you lose the discipline and you eat the junky food or whatever. That's one example. I mean, I had another example where somebody had a bad boss. And, what we found is, as we were talking about this, she had never had a bad boss before, but she was starting to have paranoid thoughts and all sort of stuff. So she's like, I'm going to go to a therapist. And I'm like, look, you don't need to do that because there's nothing wrong with you. That's the natural response. I mean, you've had 5 managers, 6 managers at the same company, and nothing like this has ever happened over the last 10 years. It's because of this boss that you're feeling this way. I mean, don't go to a therapist to deal with this. Get a different boss. I mean, that's the way you solve this problem. So it's pretty simple. And I'm looking at this from a third party perspective, very neutral. But then she really started crying because she said, you're really starting to see where I'm at. And I said, look, actually, I don't want you to take any action. I want you to just be with the clarity. And that's when she said that's what she needed. I don't want people to tell me things to do. I just want to be able to have this clarity that we were getting from this conversation.
Yes. Yeah.
So I would say that can be like, sometimes that's all you need. So I'm trying to also say, a lot of the people that go through the blueprint, like, even though I'm a coach, right? So I want to try to get you to assert and all that, like we're going to do it. I would say it's also a success if, in fact, I'm not your coach. In fact, the guy that I told you was 22, I never coached him. I mean, he did the blueprint. I did talk to him on the phone, a couple times, but I mean, he did it. And now it's like, he doesn't need me. I mean, he's just asserting himself into the world, and there's no actual coaching. There's no OKR or anything like that. He's going to become what we call a certified. Actually, he'll be the first person besides me to be a certified without actually having gone through the coaching. What I'm going to do is say, if you take a screenshot of your blueprint and tell me what you did to assert your true self into the world, I'm going to review it. And I'm going to say, you're a certified. I mean, as long as I believe it, it looks legit. We'll have a conversation as well. But like, it's not like this goes on your LinkedIn profile or anything like that. It's just like, wow, you did this thing that's amazing. I mean, right now, more than ever, we're starting to see themes about people being lonely versus connected and all that. And in my flow matrix, you can see it. You can see, what are you doing that's putting you to be alone? What are you doing that's making you feel connected? It's like, okay, do this. Like my mom, with the Mahjong, it's okay to practice Mahjong by yourself because that's going to help you to be more connected with other people. But as you get older, like, I'm not the only one that says this, right? We all know that there's like having friends and being around people is more important than your cholesterol for your longevity as you get older. This is not like, and with each decade becomes more important. So if you're in mid-career, figuring out avenues in your direction that help you to get more connected with other people is going to be super important. And you can no longer go with a transactional relationship. So we're starting to see all these trends, which I guess are kind of in the literature anyway. But what's interesting is sort of like, I'm not going to talk about trends with a bunch of data. I'm going to talk about you. You're going to do the N=1, right? Where you see your experience. This is you. This is like a snapshot of you. So it's very exciting. So anyway, as you can see,
I'm looking forward to do that again, Ben. I'm looking forward to do that again, and I'll definitely try with my clients as well.
This is my okay. After you do your blueprint, let's do this. Let's do you refine it. Let's do a Zoom meeting, you and me, refine it one more time, and then let's do another podcast episode.
Okay.
And
I will talk about my blueprint, what came out. Yeah.
And then I'll just make you talk all about your blueprint, and because this time I think I talked the whole time. I'm so excited. So then we'll have you be the.
I've got an email, so I'm gonna read about it as well. So yeah, cool. Thank you, Ben. Thanks for coming to sharing your blueprint and sharing the thought behind this. So I'll definitely. So guys, if you want to do your blueprint, it's free at the moment. So do it on the website benlamorte.com. I'll put the link in the description. So thank you, Ben. Take care, and I'll see you soon on a Zoom call. We're discussing blueprint.
Absolutely.
Cheers, guys. I'll be back soon with a new guest. Till then, take care, stay safe, and bye for now.